So once again, welcome everyone this afternoon for our panel discussion, PhD to Postdoc, which is a collaboration between the Graduate School Office of Postdoctoral Affairs and our newly formed Postdoc Association. And so I'm happy to turn it over to Dr. Althea Campuzano, who is one of the chairs of our Postdoc Association. So Althea.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for coming by. And again, I want to thank the panelists that took time out of their busy schedules to come and talk to us. We want to first start out with introduction, so that way you guys can get along and get to know one another a little better. If we could just ask for each panelist to introduce themselves, let us know what department they're from, very briefly what they study, and then we can just get started with a few questions. So.
Do you want me to get started right here?
You might be muted, Althea.
Yeah, Althea, you're muted. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes, Priyanka, she's my better half in the Postdoctoral Association. If Priyanka, if you want to introduce yourself, I'd really appreciate it. And thanks, Marina.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, I can go ahead. Yeah, hello everyone again, and I'm Priyanka Mishra. I'm a postdoctoral associate in Dr. Kale's lab in the Department of Neuroscience, Regen Development and Regenerative Biology. As Althea mentioned, I am one of the co-chair with Althea for the Postdoctoral Association at UTSA. And in my research, I'm trying to understand the epigenetics of neuropsychiatric disorders using the current edge tools in the single cell biology and stem cells model. I will pass it over to Nicolas, our next panelist.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Nicolas Murcio. I'm from Argentina. I'm working in the College of Engineering in the Biomedical Engineering and Chemical Engineering department. And we're working in Dr. Romero's lab with biomaterials, regenerative medicine, and neuron stimulation. And that is more or less all. So now I think Marina can continue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marinad. I am a postdoc through academic affairs. So my official postdoc title is the Provost Diversity Postdoctoral Fellow, but I'm housed within the Department of Public Health. And my research interests are broadly around Latino health disparities, with an interest in looking at the intersection of place, race, ethnicity, and health. Jose?
Thank you, Marina. My name is Jose Villagran, and I'm a postdoc through the Mellon-funded Democratizing Racial Justice Project, which is housed through the Department of Race, Ethnicity, Gender, and Sexuality Studies here at UTSA. And my research interest is, to be specific, migrant and seasonal farm labor in the United States, the sort of political economy of this labor class in the US, just sort of broadly speaking. Thank you. And I think that's it for the panelists, correct?
Yes, I believe so. Unless we're missing anyone, please feel free to interrupt me. But first of all, well, thank you guys for sharing your information. We also want to ask each one of you, what is the difference between your PhD versus your postdoc life? Are there any changes? I'm sure you guys will say there might be some. And especially for people who are interested in going for an additional research experience or perhaps teaching, or what other opportunities are there for postdocs? So it's a two-part question. And since Jose, since you were the last one to talk, perhaps we could go the opposite way now.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So, from my perspective, and I guess I'll just be frank and brief, because I know we got a lot of questions and a lot of other panelists here, but is money, right? And I know that this is a very real concern. We live in a capitalist society, right? And the reality is that when I think when I look at this question, I think about the immediate differences, at least speaking personally, between PhD, between the almost, image, that stereotypical image of the hungry graduate student, right? Surviving on fellowship funds or TA-ships. The postdoc tends to represent obviously an increase in money, right? without necessarily as much responsibility, for example, as a tenure track line position in your field of study. So I would say, but money as well, I think you're almost crossing a certain threshold in this sort of hierarchy of higher education, right? While many of us as PhD students have very close and cordial familial relationships with the faculty we work with, at least as far as my position, I'm coded as faculty, even though I'm a postdoc, right? So you do enter into that sort of new realm professionally, and I think those are the sort of two major things that I notice. But again, I want to be a little bit brief, so I'll pass it, I guess, if we're going in reverse order, to Marina.
Yeah, and to build off of your last comment about the kind of crossing the threshold to a different hierarchy within the system, I guess with that, I would say there comes more autonomy. And so, yeah, as grad students, this sounds horrible, but I often heard things like, your time is not your own. And that's something that was drilled into me, and I internalized it. So kind of when I made this transition, you do have autonomy. And while I do still have a workload and maybe more responsibilities, or responsibilities look different, my time does feel protected. And so I also find myself making an effort to make space and time for not just work, but myself as well. Yeah, so Nicolas.
Thank you. So yes, talking about autonomy, I feel that one of the big differences is that you do not need to write a thesis work that needs to make some sense. So you have a lot of freedom for curiosity and to follow like different paths and different directions. So that is something really interesting, because you can work in different fields, different areas. You can learn different things that maybe in your PhD you can do that, but you are more restricted because you have to complete a thesis. And another big difference that I have been seeing is the part of mentoring. Maybe as a PhD student, you are learning a lot of things. And then when you are the postdoc, you are the person that maybe is teaching a lot of things in the lab, and the person that everybody's going to look for asking questions and those kind of things. So I find that those two things are like completely different between being a PhD student and a postdoc. Thank you.
I think my friends really covered a great point. I would like to add from my perspective and from my experience, I feel like, both the grad life and the postdoc life is really very different, in the terms also that you really get, opportunities and your time to build on your several different skills that you are not able to be during your grad research. Some of those are on your professional side. You really learn to get those of the professional skills, like one example that Nicholas mentioned about the mentorship, training junior researchers or visiting researchers in the lab, directly mentoring students in the lab. That's another thing. And you also get time to, pursue on your a choice of the future career, whether you are still like to be staying in the academia, or really you want to move into the industry. That time also gives you, to build on your, future career. And the other important thing that really helped me was really, that in the postdoc life, you really have that freedom to pursue your own independent ideas that you could not be able to, do in the grad research, because you're really committed with one project that you have to, build your thesis upon. So it's a lot of things that you learn in being in a postdoc life. And I feel that eventually, if you want to stay in the academia or you want to move into the industry, one postdoc for a couple of years time really, helps you build on many of those skills that you can translate into any career you decided to move on in the future. So yeah, that's what I think of.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I guess the other question I have for you is, well, one, how long have you been a postdoc for? And two, how did you find out about the position you're in right now? And if we can go back, so Priyanka, if you want to get us started.
Yes, of course, I can do that. To me, postdoc, ideally my postdoc has been for 3 years now. And how I found out my postdoc mine was really a very different way. But in general, how it works is like how I started the approach was looking out for the positions, in the different university, in the departments of my interest, like what my research interest is, what my research topic is, in that same direction, what I want to pursue in the future. So I started my hunt in that direction. But I have always been very interested in having my own, independent fellowship and grant. So the way it helped for me was I am from India. So I was an international, postdoc international candidate for all those fellowships that I was applying to. And I started that with the Canada. There's a very prestigious postdoctoral fellowship in biological sciences that's called Banting Postdoctoral Fellowship. So I started for that search. I applied to that. I got it. And I moved to the Canada with my postdoctoral program. So that was a way I entered through. But there are a lot of different ways, like you enter through a fellowship, apply through a grant, you apply through open positions that, PIs have advertised at different job platforms, like, and you can also look for positions that are, advertised through societies, scientific societies or technical societies, and the journals that they advertise about the positions. So there are many different approach, and I will let others to talk about how it was the experience for them.
Thank you, Priyanka.
I guess I can, I didn't know if we want to go in order, but I'll just spice it up a little bit. So I've been in my postdoc for a year. It's a 2-year postdoc. The idea of my postdoc specifically, because it's through academic affairs, it's part of UTSA's initiatives to increase diversity among faculty specifically. So the idea of my postdoc after the 2 years is so long as I meet the metrics that I'm given, then I automatically transition into a tenure track position. So I think that in that sense, it's very unique. And the way that I came across it was actually pretty serendipitous. So I can't say I did this and that. I mean, aside from, looking, as Priyanka mentioned, using job platforms, even like Indeed, HERC, which is Higher Education Recruitment Consortium, where they list out postdocs and other positions. But you go to a conference, you sign up for a listserv. And so I didn't know what listserv I signed up for, but it came into my email, almost went to the trash. And then I kind of took a pause and really looked into it, because personally Texas wasn't on my radar necessarily. I know for some, maybe that's an approach too, where you take a location-based approach. So yeah, I came across it, became really interested. Like I said, specifically the aspect where I'd be gaining both teaching and research experience, which as I was going through postdocs, it tends to be either cited only towards teaching or largely towards research. So I do feel fortunate to have come across this and going through the experience right now of kind of trying to balance both teaching and research.
Wow, great, thank you. So after finishing my PhD, I went to Spain and I made a brief postdoc there, like for 8 months. It was like an exchange program from the European Union. Then I went back to Argentina for a year and a half for another postdoc with a fellowship that I won. And then after that, I was looking for another postdoc position, and my advisor from Spain put me in contact with Dr. Romero. She won a grant a couple of years ago, and she had that like money for hiring a postdoc. And well, he recommended me to Dr. Romero because he knew her. He was her PhD advisor. So that is why I'm here working.
So for me, you know, building on what everyone else is saying, well, my story is just a lot, I guess, more maybe boring. I was somebody who was already a finalist for a tenure track position elsewhere, and it fell through. And as we know, you know, it's no secret, right? Of course, the job market in academia is incredibly competitive, and I think it, you know, getting rejected is part of this life, right? Sadly so, but of course, it speaks, I think, a lot more to the competitiveness of the fields that we're in more than anything. And so I, you know, was continuing my job search on some of the sites that have already been mentioned, right? Chronicles of Higher Education, Higher Ed Jobs. I mean, you know, you kind of, I think when you're wrapping, for me, and in fact, I was actually already lecturing. So I had already had my PhD and was lecturing and was really trying to get on that tenure track line, right? And so you scramble for positions that seem like a good fit. That, you know, and for me, just personally speaking, Texas was very much on my map to counter Marina. I didn't necessarily take a place-based approach because I was more interested in a secure job, but I'm from South Texas. So to be able to land a position in San Antonio was an absolute dream. And it's, you know, I'm in the first year of the postdoc at this point, wrapping up here in June will be my first year anniversary of a 3-year position. And just incredibly grateful. I was in Wisconsin before this at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it's very cold and very far away from my family. And of course the pandemic hit while I was over there. And so to be able to just be here, driving distance to my family and to be in my home state is obviously a very fortunate part. And you really do love when it works out that way, because I think it is exceedingly rare. But yeah, that's my story. Thank you.
And I'll just add to, yeah, if you take a place-based approach, if you know you don't like the snow, the cold, if you're from Texas, I'm originally from California. And I did school on the East Coast. So yeah, it does. I don't know if you guys as grad students came from other places, but I took a more intentional approach in terms of location when it came to my postdoc.
Indeed, it was for me as well. Yeah. Do you have other questions, Althea? She cut out, or is she still there? Althea, can you? She lost her audio. Okay, in case John is here.
I have some
Yes.
questions in front of me, John. Should we maybe move on to some of those as well?
Yeah, let's go to that. I'm going to pull up the questions.
Okay, yeah.
I'm seeing, for example, how did you weigh whether postdoctoral training would boost your career prospects? Maybe we can jump to that. I'm just trying to be a little helpful here.
Would you like to talk on that, Jose, first, or like?
Yeah, I guess I can lead. Sorry about that. I was kind of pausing to see if someone would come in. What I'm going to go ahead and say is I find my postdoc to be amazing, right? As I was mentioning earlier, I was a little bit crushed when I didn't get the tenure track lines I was a finalist for. And of course, in some ways, it feels like I was this close to a tenure track line at a place I really valued. And, you know, so therefore, this almost represented regression for me. And now that I'm here, I realize that I'm really at the right place, because if anything, a postdoctoral fellowship is giving you time, the resources you need, as we mentioned earlier, but also time, right? With all of my friends, colleagues, coworkers who are on the tenure track line, they regularly talk about the ticking clock when you're on the tenure track line, right? Before you go into review for you know, to attain tenure. And so, of course, It's not to say that the clock's not ticking. It's always ticking. It's ticking when you're a grad student, it's ticking here, but it doesn't tick as loudly. And it gives you some time, right, to really, develop your book manuscript, to meet with editors, to continue to expand on your research, which has been previously, brought up to me. What I will say is this: is whenever you're getting advice from advisors, from friends, etc., understand that things have shifted quite a bit from perhaps the way that academia used to function. So I know I used to get advice that, you should just jump straight into a tenure track line, because again, postdocs is not where you want to end up. But the reality is that tenure track lines are just so much more competitive, and postdoctoral fellowships give you that ability to enhance your CV in a way that is very effective, so that you end up with the tenure track line that you want. And so, I'm not going to tell you to turn down a tenure track line job by any means, but I'm going to say, make sure you don't sell short the prospects of a postdoctoral fellowship. Once I realized that, it was a space for me to build my CV and to continue to develop my research, again, without as loud of a ticking clock, excuse me, I was really able to, embrace and appreciate it.
So I think I'm up to speed now. I have the questions up, but you're gonna have to tell me if this was something. Have we talked about postdoc funding?
Not yet.
Nope. Okay. So how are your postdoc positions funded, and what resources did you use in finding postdoctoral fellowship funding? And we'll start with Nicholas.
Okay, so I'm working here because Dr. Romero received a grant from NIH. Yes, so she had money there in that grant to hire a postdoc, and basically that is what I'm using to live here in San Antonio. I know there are other options, but yes, she got a grant, and I have here like a 4-year length space to work and gain experience, as Jose was explaining.
Perfect. And Priyanka?
Yeah, I'm in biological sciences, and major funding comes from NIH and NSF, and pretty much those are the grants which I am working on with. It's not my independent grant, because I'm international, foreign national. So yeah, all those grants are on my PI, and I'm just as a postdoctoral associate working on those funding grants. But yeah, major are from NIH and NSF.
Perfect. And Marina?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I am funded through academic affairs, not through my department or a grant. But I will say that other options include training fellowships. So there are postdocs that are specific to, around training, and as either research or teaching, or in my case, both, but that's another option if you're not written into someone's grant.
Thank you. And Jose?
Yeah, so my postdoc is funded through the Mellon Foundation, right, through a grant that was won by UTSA professors. And just to quickly add, in my last answer, right, I'm very much discussing people whose lifelong career aspirations are academia, right, and the tenure track line. I, of course, don't want to be dismissive of all of the potential opportunities that exist as well outside of academia. So, but that is where I'm more useful, because that's where I want to be. And so that's what I'll be speaking to. I just wanted to clarify, because I definitely don't like discouraging people from all of their career opportunities.
The other thing I just want to clarify for everyone, and I don't know if this has been discussed or not, and I think there is a misconception that postdocs, I mean, because it is, the title is postdoc fellow, that they're considered similar to PhD students, and that is not the case. Really, I've fought to really make sure that there is a distinction between our graduate students and our postdoctoral population. Our postdocs and postdocs at other universities and institutions are staff members. They are research staff. Most of the time, I would say the majority of the time, full-time research staff, part of the university. So I did want to make sure that clarification is clear. Is
And
my
if I can
audio
just
fuzzy?
if I can just add, John, as in building off the other question that you had posed, Jose, about weighing options, whether or not to do a postdoc. I personally wasn't as sure as you mentioned, Jose, that I wanted to go into academia, but I still had the perspective that a postdoc would benefit me more than it would hinder me. For example, from undergrad, I went into the PhD program and didn't do a master's. And so I felt as though a master's may have benefited me. So I kind of took that approach into weighing my options for the postdoc. And so I just having the idea that it's not a continuation of grad school, because that's what it might feel like, or the perspective from others, but it truly is additional training. And that's when you get to, because of the autonomy, you get to tailor that a little bit more than you are doing, for example, at the grad school level.
To add on the funding thing, I see a question from Althea in the chat box. Can you apply for your own funding as a postdoc? Yes, in biological sciences, you have the certain grants like K99 and R21 that you can apply, but that has certain qualifications that you have to be. One of the major is that you have to be citizen of the US. So there are some other qualifications, but yeah, you can apply your own funding and independent funding as a postdoc that you can carry forward in your tenure track faculty position as well, wherever you move. Those are transferable between the institutions and universities very well. Yeah.
Can I just quickly add there, Priyanka? I appreciate that you brought that up and answered that question, but getting funding makes you a lot more marketable on the market as well. Obviously, not only can you transfer it, but now you are a lot more alluring to prospective employers. So absolutely.
Yeah, that would help me. I had a banding postdoctoral fellowship in Canada, and that really helped me to get a job here in San Antonio at the University of Texas.
Does my audio sound better?
Yep, now very well. Yeah. Oh, Althea,
can you guys hear me?
Also. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Althea's back.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm in a conference right now, so just a little upside about being a postdoc. You do get to travel and talk about your research. So I apologize for that. I did want to add, because you guys mentioned a lot about your own research opportunities and funding, and thank you, Priyanka, for bringing that up. I also wanted to ask, as far as responsibilities, if you see difference between, in what John said, that we're no longer students, however, we are considered trainees. What are the expectations that you see as a postdoc that are different from like an original PhD student that you've noticed that have changed? Like, what are some of your responsibilities now that you didn't have before?
Did you say you wouldn't be happy for in the end?
Oh, no, I just asked, like, what responsibilities did you get that you weren't aware of or you didn't have in the past?
Aware of.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think I can't really think of the responsibilities. Okay, so there's a different thing you're not informed of or you're not aware of. Yeah. But yeah, I think pretty much when how it worked for me was like when you join a position, when you're interviewing for a position, your hiring manager, pretty much clarify about the things that what your responsibility would be included, during your job descriptions. It could be handling several or leading several projects, training junior researchers or co-workers in the position, or sometimes it also includes, like, if you're interested in teaching, they kind of giving your ability, they include the teaching parts in your responsibility, and some other things like that. But I think during my PhD, I kind of aware of all these responsibilities or opportunities that I might get into when I, move on to a postdoctoral position to actually really mentor and teach these students directly. So yeah, but I would like to hear about any different perspective from others.
Something to offer here that I think really stands out, and it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be unique to my experience, and that everyone has different experiences. But so this is something Nicolas said earlier, right? Where like as a PhD student, your obsession almost, right, is your thesis or your dissertation, right? This publication, but if we can go back to before we are working on our thesis or dissertations, for me, I had to do comprehensive exams, right? And the comprehensive exams were very broad. My dissertation was very narrowly focused on migrant and seasonal farm labor, for example, in this region and this region, right? I did multi-sided research, ethnographic research. And so, but when we go, in order to get myself there, I had to do these comprehensive exams that covered much bigger terrains, right? Academic terrains. I had to talk about transnational relations between Mexico and the United States. I had to talk about, all of these much larger concepts. And in many ways, moving past the PhD into the postdoc, it's like you're revisiting your comprehensive, and quite literally, I have pulled up my comprehensive exams because I still have them saved more than I ever did, I think, when I was dissertating and writing my dissertation, because what you're expected to do at this level now is expand, right, off of research you've already done. And so you have to stop being as narrow as you were focused when you were writing your dissertation, and now come up with new avenues of potential research and ideas. And so in many ways, you're going to have to revisit some stuff that, in my case, right, that you had done before in your comprehensive exams, because the whole thing now is to build bridges into new inquiries, new areas of research. And so I think for me, that's a huge difference.
Wow.
Yeah, very good points.
Yes. So I just wanted to add some things to that. I think that question is very personal, and it depends on what do you want for your future. So, for example, I'm the kind of person that is never thinking of what is going to come after this. So I finish my education, then I continue with my PhD because, I don't know, it was like something common. And then I wanted maybe to continue in academia, so I follow like for a postdoc because it was like, I don't know, I never stopped to think about what I wanted to do in my future. So please do that. Give your time to think about what you want to do, where you want to live. Do you want to live abroad or here in the US or close to your family or not? That is very important. And then for your postdoc, I think, again, you have a lot of freedom. And if you know what you want to do, maybe if you want to stay in academia, you will follow like, try to pick responsibilities related to that. For example, for your PhD and during your PhD, I think you are most of the time trying to resolve a problem. As a postdoc, maybe you learn how to find new problems and questions, interesting questions and problems to resolve. So that is something very important. For example, if you want to continue in academia, as long as, well, mentorship, teaching, if you want, learning how to write grants, how to review papers, and all those kind of things. And the thing is that, of course, maybe you don't want to continue in academia and maybe you want to do other kind of stuff. And I know that a lot of people that finish their postdoc and they shown like big publishers like Wiley, Elsevier, ACS, and they are there working as editors, for example. So that is another interesting option. So maybe according to what you want for your future, you can move and see, well, okay, maybe I can do this or I can help in that. You can do a lot of lab management also, buying staff or organizing group meetings or that kind of stuff. So I think it's something very broad. It's completely different.
And I would just say some of the things that are different for me from the PhD or added responsibilities. I didn't teach in my PhD program. I know some PhD programs that, I mean, I was a teaching assistant, but I am now teaching. And so with that comes more student responsibility, not just students in your lab that you know are dedicated to this work. So it does come with mentoring, and kind of one thing that I was told is in in a PhD program, similar to like around the topic of being so focused on your thesis, you're in this survival mode where it's just you for you. But then kind of when you step into a new role as a postdoc, maybe you are now, others are depending on you as well, whether those are your PIs, undergraduate students, faculty members who see you as a colleague, not, and no offense, as a grad student, because as we know, there is a hierarchy. And so you switch from, it's just me, I have to survive. I mean, obviously, even if we have families and things of that sort, you know that the end goal is the dissertation. But as Jose brought up, it becomes more broad into the postdoc.
Okay, I did want to ask a final question before we close it out for any other additional questions. Or in fact, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to jump in. But I want to ask a personal question to each one of you. As far as your decision to go and pursue a postdoc, what is your actual opinion on, was that a good decision on your part, especially as a growing, stepping stone to your overall end career? Are you happy with your decision, or would you have done it differently?
I can start. For me, to personally, I really appreciate my period at the postdoctoral journey, and I honestly get to learn many of those things that I really wanted to, build on my skill sets. As an overall, whether it's on my intellectual knowledge, whether it's on my, professional skills or the soft and hard skills in myself. But that really helped me. And I know that whether I'm moving into the academia next, or whether I'm staying in the academia next, or moving into the industry, I know that I can translate those skills into any of those opportunities that I would be, entering into. So it has been really very beneficial for me overall. Yeah. Anyone else want to touch on it?
I think you're muted. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll just quickly jump in. I think because I've already showed my cards on this. I talked about like I love this position, not just because I'm from Texas and I love the Mexican food here and that they didn't have in Wisconsin and all that type of stuff, but no, because it's a training period, right? Like where else do you get this opportunity? And quite frankly, I have a lot of friends, as I'm sure others of us who are in this position do, who did get the tenure track line. And I just feel like they're more stressed out than me, generally speaking. I think there is, and I mean, that's not necessarily always going to be the case, but again, that ticking clock, the tenure review, all this type of stuff, they had to almost jump into a fire. Whereas when you're in a postdoc, you really get to see the process close up without necessarily feeling that exact same sense of urgency. Of course, there's still urgency to produce because you eventually want to maybe get that tenure track line, or present yourself as marketable to as Priyanka said, maybe in another industry outside of academia. But you get to have a period where you get to, I think, see the process for what it looks like. All of my friends now, like in my, when I was in grad school, all of my friends and my peers were fellow graduate students. Now all of my friends I hang out with, both personally and professionally, are faculty, right? And some of them are already, tenured. Some of them are junior faculty on the line. It's like you get to really pick at their brains and ask those questions and see how things are and how things function without necessarily having to feel that dread or that worry of already being immersed in it. And so I would do this over in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I think the way you described in academia is really, I think it's in both, right? It really helps you to cache your ideas, whether you are applying your putting your ideas into earning a grant, or whether you are putting your ideas, selling your ideas into a market when you are applying for industry positions. So I think it helps you overall doing in your postdoctoral period. Yeah.
And I'll say too, I know it's quiet. That doesn't mean that I do not love my postdoc. I am really enjoying my time as a postdoc. It's exactly that, it's not, you do have high expectations, but kind of the way that my postdoc works right now, or the way my chair calls it, it's like a baby faculty position. So I get this kind of exposure and practice even beforehand, so that when I'm actually in a position, whether that's academia, although I really like UTSA. So this has been, and part of my end goal was to come back to an HSI. So the fact that I'm already at an HSI as a postdoc with the potential of staying here, it's worked out, And so, yeah, the idea of being intentional, even though you see, it's like, because I was desperately looking for a postdoc while I was dissertating, and I wasn't successful the first round. And by the second round, I was more intentional. So just, piece of advice as you are even looking at a postdoc position, see it, look at it, Nicolas said, you feel like you're just going with the flow, and these are the things that you have to do and check the boxes. But this is an opportunity for you to also be intentional, because if you see it as an extended PhD, it will feel like an extended PhD. So look at, what you want to bring to the table, but also what you can take from the postdoc, so that those skills can be transferable, especially if you're between going into academia or industry.
Well, thank you. So yes, I would say I'm very happy with this decision. I'm the kind of person that loves trying like new things and knowing like new things, and this opportunity of maybe moving to another country, living in another place, getting to know new people in a new lab, doing something different, like a new area of research or something like that. It's something like that I really love, I really like. As Jose was saying, for example, you have to know also what you want for your life. Maybe being far away from your family is not good for you. I'm really far away from my family. In fact, and with the pandemic and everything, it was complicated. But I don't know, you can take the risk and see how it goes. For me, it was wonderful. It was like here in the US, 2.5 years of learning something completely different. This country is completely different of anywhere I have been before. So yes, it was a great experience.
Oh, well, I'm very glad you guys are all excited and, have positive vibes about your postdoc decision. It is a transitional step. And so we do want to let you all know that if you have any questions, we're gonna, I believe John said we can stop the recording if you like, and you can actually ask any questions that you may have in mind. You can address it to the specific speakers today, or if you have a general question, we'd be more than happy to answer it for you. So at this